Nobody ever had a thought that came to them from out of the blue. It came to them because of the work that goes on in their cranium command.
I understand you're in charge of some very creative things. I would think that would be terribly interesting.
Right you are, for right in there, imaginations everywhere.
We're pollinators. We're pollinators.
After 30,000 years of time travel, here we are. A truly global community. Networked, online, poised to shape the future of Spaceship Earth.
WDW Radio, your information station.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to the WDW Radio Show, your Walt Disney World information station. I am your host, Lou Mangello, and this is show number 536. And I'm here once again not only to help you have a wonderful vacation experience when you go to the Disney parks, but I also want to bring you a little bit of Disney magic wherever you are, not just with the podcast, but with my videos, live broadcasts on Facebook every Wednesday night, books, audio tour, blog, special events, group cruises, the WDW Radio Nation, and so much more. You can find everything over at WDWRadio.com. Adventure is out there, and sometimes it's found in places we've visited before, and others we could only dream of seeing. And thanks to Adventures by Disney, we were recently able to do both, as members of our WDW Radio family gathered together in Southern California for not just an adventure, but the making of some dreams coming true. And together, we experienced a very special, unique tour of classic Hollywood, one of Walt Disney's personal favorite restaurants, as well as his studio, private offices, Imagineering, the Jim Henson Studios, the Walt Disney Archives, Walt's actual apartment, on stage and backstage at Disneyland and Disney California Adventure Parks, and a continuing list of surprises. This week, we're going to share our recent trip and invite you to come on a future adventure with us. I'll then have the answer to our last Walt Disney World trivia question of the week, and I'll pose a new challenge for your chance to win a Disney Prize package. Then stay tuned to the end of the show, as I'll have more information about other WDW Radio upcoming events, meets of the month in Walt Disney World, your voicemails, and more. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the WDW Radio Show. How could you make a Disneyland trip even better? Whether you've been there one time or visit every year, I think like Walt Disney, it's always about trying to plus your experience. So what if I told you that on a very special trip to Disneyland, we together would get to experience things that most guests will never get to see, and that together we would also visit classic Hollywood, one of Walt Disney's personal favorite restaurants, as well as his studio, private offices, Imagineering, the Jim Henson Studios, the Walt Disney Archives, his actual apartment, and a continuing list of incredible destinations, each of which would be enhanced with a little bit of that extra Disney magic. Would that be a trip that maybe you'd like to take? Well, a number of years ago we did, and it was my very first Adventures by Disney Backstage Magic Tour, and I loved it so much that I wanted to do it again. And just a few weeks ago, although it seems like ages, we did just that. A small group of WDW Radio friends and extended family embarked on a true adventure of a lifetime, and this week I want to share that experience with you, and maybe, just maybe, encourage you to join us for a future WDW Radio group trip adventure. And so I'd like to welcome some of those friends and adventurers to the virtual roundtable this week. I'm not smart enough to do alphabetical order, but I will always do ladies first. I would love to welcome Beatrice and her husband, Dennis. Brian, welcome to the show.
Yay, hi there.
Hi.
So just very quickly, this was your very first ever Adventures by Disney?
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent.
What a way to start.
What
awesome.
a way to start. You're going to get it's easy to get hooked, isn't it?
Really
Absolutely.
And a returning adventurer, Katie Kuhn.
Hi, thanks for having me back.
Thank you for being here. Your very first, so I know your first Adventures by Disney with us was it last year? We were in China together.
Yes, my first and only, and after that, I was hooked.
With a little bit of Japan sprinkled on the we were talking about our Chandu. You have a necklace, I have a plush, and our desire to go back. Of course, no Adventures by Disney would be complete without the lovely, the incomparable Becky Mankin from MEI and Mouse Fan Travel. You thought I was going to go somewhere else, but I did come back to you.
I did. You just had that sound in your voice, like you're trying to set me up for something, but it failed miserably. But that's okay. It's great to be back on the show, especially talking about something that was such an amazing experience.
And first-time callers, long-time listeners, and I believe both first-time adventurers, although I know one of you has been on cruises with us before. Anthony Flacco, welcome.
Hi, Lou. Thanks for having me. Hi, everyone.
And you are a first-time adventurer, but long-time cruiser, correct?
First-time adventurer, two-time cruiser. Yes.
Which what ships and destinations were you on with us?
I did the Star Wars cruise 2 years ago, and then did the Double Dip last year.
I can't believe Star Wars was 2 years ago. That's crazy. That is crazy. But first-time adventurer, first-time caller, long-time Nation member, David Potts.
Hello, Lou.
How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
This was, and like I said, this was your very first adventure. This was a lot of firsts for you, correct?
It was. It was my first time to Disneyland. It was my first adventure by Disney. It was my first time traveling with WDW radio.
Excellent. And I'm sure, and spoiler alert, there was some definite first-time moments I think that we all experienced before. But before we actually get into the trip, you know, I said that Becky and I had done this, I guess it was 2013, Becky? Was it 2013, somewhere around there?
Earlier than that. Wasn't it 11?
No. It was I think it was 13 that I don't know.
Really?
I think it was 13 because it was the year of D23 Expo.
Yeah.
We so intelligently backed up the Adventures by Disney to the start of D23 Expo. So we were jumping.
It was
in
great
between.
for the guests. I mean, come on, face it. Come on down. You get to do the ABD and then jump right into D23.
We literally were running from Disneyland over to the Anaheim Convention Center in order to set up the booth. But this was something we had done before. We loved it so much. The feedback was so great, and enough time had passed that I wanted to do it again. But for those of you who this was your first, I still call it Backstage Magic. Why this one? What was it about this ABD or this group trip that made you say, this is the one that I wanted to do? Was it the overall trip? Was there a single experience you're looking forward to? And we'll sort of go on the same way that I introduced you. So Dennis's, Katie, Anthony, and David.
Well, for me, this was a lot of bucket list items drawn all together into one big trip. I had always wanted to see Walt's apartment. I had always wanted to see the studios. I'd always wanted to see the Hollywood sign. And personally, I worked in TV for 15 years. So I wanted to see how the show happens. So Man's Chinese Theater, all of that was like a whole lot of bucket list in one. So that was what drew me to it. And
for me, it was, I'm a big history and behind the scenes thing. And for me, you know, seeing all the way they make movies and the way they do things like the Muppets, you know, that was awesome watching them, you know, play with the Muppets and you know, like the Chinese theater and all the test track and, you know, all that stuff, you know, behind the scenes. It was just incredible seeing how they actually do things. That's what I liked.
And we'll certainly touch on, I think some of us, you go in with expectations of that thing that you're most looking forward to seeing. And then once you get there, it's eclipsed by something else that you experience. Katie, what about for you?
I am a big fan of the parks. So for me, it was about going to Imagineering and the archives and the studio, seeing the true Disney legacy.
Anthony?
Yeah, for me, it was sort of the perfect storm, I guess. I had been to Disney World about 40 plus times, but I'd never been to Disneyland, so that drew immediate interest to me. I was always interested with Disney history, going back to some of those old Disneyland TV shows with Walt in the parks, showing his viewers what was coming next. And even the old Reluctant Dragon movie with Robert Benchley going through the studios. So that was intrigued me to see that up close and personal. And then you add in the WDW radio group, it was sort of a win-win-win situation for me.
And was it so? I mean, you had obviously traveled in, as a group before, which sometimes I think for some people might be a little scary or intimidating, especially if you've never been to an event before. So, David, what about for you? Again, a lot of firsts for you in terms of going as a group and what you were looking forward to.
Well, like Anthony said, I was actually looking for a trip to Disneyland when this came up, and I was also wondering about WDW Radio's 10th anniversary party. And when you announced this trip, it was like the perfect storm of both of them. So I just had to jump into that.
I think, Becky, for us having done a number, and you've done, 712 Adventures by Disney. When they were giving out pins for how many, at the beginning for how many you've done, they gave Becky a stack. They had to stack the pins because they didn't have numbers that were high enough for her. But I think there's a lot of reasons to not just go as a group, and we'll talk about the group dynamic and how I think it does enhance the experience for everybody. But in terms of Adventures by Disney itself, and I think, Katie, we saw this especially in a place like going to China, I think having the guides and the service, them being cast members and the accommodations and the VIP access and the special events and so much that is included. And I think to a certain degree, the fact that all of the stress and the worry and the hassle is taken away, not to mention all the things that, like I said, are sort of plussed because you're doing it as an ABD.
Mm-hmm. Part of the huge benefit of an Adventures by Disney is the fact that you're pretty much traveling with two concierge with you at all times. You have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You have two people there to take care of anything that's an inconvenience in your vacation. So they are moving the bags around for you. I mean, the moment that we got to the hotel, we got a tag for our bags. We put the bags out for that first day to change to the next hotel. We don't even have to touch them or move them. If you needed a dining reservation, they were there to help you with that. On other adventures we've had in the past, and especially China's a great example of one, having them around in an unfamiliar environment is such a blessing, because when you don't speak the language and you're trying to find the nearest bathroom, it really is kind of a benefit to have people around that know where we are and where we're going and how to maximize your time in the locations. And same happens for Disneyland and familiar locations, because you do get access that you would never get just going there as a regular guest.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we'll touch on in terms of what makes an Adventures by Disney special, and as well as some of the things that we were able to do because this group was just WDW Radio friends and family. There was a lot of extra magic that was put on top that I think for us, knowing some of the things that are going to happen that the guests don't know is part of the fun for us. There's this level of expectation in terms of what's in your guidebook and what the website says and what we talk about, but it's those things that we are able to do, and you and your team have done an amazing job of being able to enhance the experience and do things that regular Adventures by Disney guests don't get to do. And we were sort of talking kind of pregame before we were recording. It ended up becoming difficult sometimes to remember what you did the day before, because as the days were going on and you're getting hit with all these different surprises, it was just one thing after another. And I'm so happy I took as many pictures as I did, because I was forgetting some of the things that we encountered all the way. But let's kind of quickly go through a day by day chronology of our week-long adventure. Becky, we had actually gotten in a day early. We had checked in. And so, again, one of the things, too, that I love is the accommodations when you do an Adventures by Disney. So we stayed at the Lowe's Hollywood Hotel, which is right next to Hollywood and Highland. We had a chance to sort of go out and explore a little bit. The Walk of Fame. We ate at Mel's Diner, which is just sort of that Hollywood touristy thing to do. But that first day, you arrive in L.A., you check into the Hollywood Hotel.
Can I just throw something in there really fast?
Sure.
Before you even check in, Adventures by Disney is providing a transfer for you from the airport to the location. So when you get off the plane and you're heading to baggage claim, there's somebody standing there with a sign with your name on it or an Adventures by Disney tag. So there's somebody right there right away to start taking away the stress. They're going to pick up your bags for you, take it to the car, load the bags, load you, and then you don't even have to worry about getting to the hotel.
I loved it. I felt like Becky Menken when I got to the hotel. When there was a little guy with the little sign. I was like, wow, I feel so special. But we do. A lot of us met even before sort of that early welcome dinner. We had an area to check in and meet our guides. And Becky, again, one of the guides we had specifically asked for, because we have had Michael on multiple adventures in the past. You know, all the guides are amazing. He is like exceptional, and Lori certainly was a great compliment to him
they were
as
a great
well.
Team.
Yeah,
they were so entertaining, and between the two of them, they knew everything there was to know between Hollywood and Disneyland. And having that much knowledge and that much entertainment in front of you was a whole attraction in itself.
But I think it was when we were checking in, even though people were coming in at different times, a lot of people met each other for the first time there. And one of the things I found that I was doing was stepping back a lot just to sort of watch the dynamic and the interaction. So anybody who wants to jump in, when you were going in to check in with the guide and get your packet and some of the little surprises that they had for you, was there excitement? Was there nervousness? Especially, you know, Anthony and David, you guys were kind of traveling solo. What was sort of that feeling when you were first going to check in and starting to meet some of the other adventurers?
Yeah, for me, there was a great deal of nervousness, but also a great deal of anticipation for what the week was about to bring. It was definitely something that I'll never forget, and definitely throughout the week made a lot of new friends, for sure.
Well, and that first dinner, so we have dinner together at the Lowe's Hollywood Hotel, and I think they do a great job of helping everybody kind of break that ice a little bit and meet one another. And one of the things that I really like is every single day and every single night setting out exactly what that next day was going to look like. So you knew exactly not just where and when to go, but what to expect. So maybe we should just do that. We should just sort of dive into that second day, because that's really when things kind of kicked off. And I know not just because of the time change, I woke up very early, even though I had done this before, with a little bit of that nervous excitement and sort of Christmas morning anticipation, because we had a sort of a private excursion out into Hollywood where we got to see the TLC, Chinese Theater, Hollywood Boulevard, and the Walk of Fame. So anybody wants to jump in, talk to me a little bit about that experience, getting to see not just where the Oscars are filmed, but the very interesting Walk of Fame, and that a peek, not just inside, but sort of a peek, a little bit sort of kind of behind the scenes at the famous Chinese Theater.
Well, for me, the Chinese Theater was one of my favorite parts of the whole trip. Seeing it, I'm a huge Mel Brooks fan, and being able to see, you know, where Blazing Saddles and, you know, Harvey and actually seeing it in the theater and them talking about it. It was,
how did he do such wonderful stunts with such little feet?
You know, and I actually I was trying to, because I didn't see a ticket booth there. I actually tried to look to see, you know, okay, was this, you know, did they use two sites, because there wasn't a ticket booth anymore. So I actually went back and looked at all the buildings and everything, and they did. There was a ticket booth back when they taped it, but it was just so exciting to see some of the places and even the history of of Bob Hope and all the different stars that put their footprints and handprints there. Clint Eastwood and just so many stars that were there. It's just amazing to me.
And all the celebrities on the Walk of Fame itself just walking around. We saw Spider-Man and Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse. I think there was maybe a Black Panther. Their accents were a little bit different, and they had a little bit of a funky smell to them, but I'm sure they were completely fully licensed and authorized by the Walt Disney Company.
I'm sure.
I actually loved going down the red carpet steps and seeing what you never get to see on the actual Oscars, like where you just think that it's this beautiful place, but when you look around and see stores that I have in my mall and realize it's actually a shopping mall instead of grand location that you imagine, it was really fun to see the behind the scenes kind of stuff and the stories that they told about it, because we would never have just known that walking by.
Yeah, you really get a sense of some of that, forget the movie magic, some of the TV magic that goes into transforming an outdoor mall into what looks like a very opulent, very elegant Oscar thing, although Victoria's Secret is right behind, and the chimichurri stand is right behind some of the drapes the next time you watch the Oscars.
The worst developed mall, it had won an award for the worst design.
Worst design, yeah.
It's beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful. And actually, Becky, we had a lovely meal at Choishi, the Japanese restaurant, the night before. So, I mean, it's great, but it just doesn't sort of fit where it is.
From what you see on TV as opposed to what you see when you're standing there, it definitely is polar opposite.
Yeah. Anybody else, any thoughts either on the theater, the Walk of Fame? So was the Walk of Fame itself a little bit of a shock? You have this vision in your mind of what you think the Walk of Fame looks like, and then when you actually step foot on it, it's a little bit different in reality?
Well, personally, I wasn't exactly expecting the Museum of Selfies or some of the other interesting attractions that are along the way, including, of course, the people that want $5 to take a picture with you as you walk around. But just the amount of tourist trappiness that happens in one square block is kind of mind blowing.
Yeah, it's.
I did see.
Yeah.
Definitely know when you're in the bubble and out.
Yeah,
I can tell you.
No, I did see Spider-Man use some of Captain America's bad language words. It was interesting.
So we spent a little bit of time there and had again, it was nice having the guides take us through there. I actually, I had never been to the Chinese theater before. When we did the original Adventures, and Becky corrected me, it was in 2011. I can't believe 7 years has gone by. We had gone over to the El Capitan Theater, so this was a new experience for me. And I got that sense of place and history. And you talk about an elegant, opulent theater. They literally don't build them that way anymore. Just going in and being able to see the ceiling was wonderful for me. But the whole time I was also thinking about what was coming up next, because we were going to a place that I think for a lot of people was very much an attractor and a highlight, and probably the first place, other than getting a hug from the sweaty Spider-Man, the first place that we had an emotional response come out, and that was heading over to the Jim Henson Studios. I know for me, that was one of the big highlights. I knew a little bit of what to expect, having been there before, but one of the nice things is not knowing what to expect. So somebody jump in and tell me about your anticipation and, more importantly, your experience when we got to the Jim Henson Studios, which, as we all know, was the original studios of Charlie Chaplin. So there's a lot of real Hollywood history beyond the Muppets and Henson that is attached to that location.
Yeah, when you pull up to the studio gate, they actually have Kermit the Frog dressed up as Charlie Chaplin's tramp, and it's very cool to see those come together.
Did anybody get, like, when you step off the bus and you step in there, you get that little bit of, like, butterfly in your stomach, like being there and being excited about what you know, what you don't know what you're going to see next?
Yeah, walking into when we went and saw the movie in that studio, knowing that Charlie Chaplin was there, watching his films and the Hensons and the amount of history there, it's amazing. And then hearing the recording studios and all the artists that have done there, We Are the World and Jim Morrison and all these different recording artists recording there is just absolutely amazing.
And just a quick aside, so it's a very very old and quaint studio. We got to see some amazing things with Muppets and puppets and met Muppeteers and saw and held Emmys and Oscars and what. But without spoiling it, I will tell you that the film that they show exclusively to Adventures by Disney groups is one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life.
That's what I was looking forward to most after I think I've been there 4 times now. And seeing that movie is like a highlight for me because it's just hilarious. It's not your grandfather's Sesame Street.
No. That has to end up on YouTube at some point.
I love that.
So for any of you, what was your highlight of your time at the studios?
I enjoyed the nostalgia of the old Charlie Chaplin stories. As much as I love Jim Henson and the Muppets, my dad got me into TV by, his stories. And so going to the old Charlie Chaplin studios and then realizing his story and his background and the way his studios and the way he took care of the children and the way he just seemed like such a great guy. And then it transformed into Jim Henson, whom we all know more about and love. And then the Muppets and all of our favorite Muppets and then going into the big conference room where they make all the big decisions and some of the photos and some of the stories and just seeing so much of that in person and knowing what was recorded there was just surreal to kind of know you're standing in that spot.
Anybody else? I think going into the soundstage and seeing where, so my first sentimental moment when the Muppeteer was talking about Bear in the Big Blue House, that's what my kids grew up on. Like, I'm not going to sing the goodbye song, but in my head, I'm singing the goodbye song. Like, I love the fact that was one of the things that happened there. We were able to, and one of the people as part of our group was able to work one of the puppets with the Muppeteer and see how they're filmed and how they block it and how they stage it. And it was just fascinating to watch. And unfortunately, she was supposed to be here tonight. She couldn't. But I was choked up watching how choked up Kristen was getting as she was able to perform with the puppet itself.
They picked the perfect person to do it. She did such an amazing job at it.
Yeah.
And she's dreamed of that. That was awesome.
And it was also cool to see the level of care the puppeteer gave to the Muppet she was holding. It looked like she was caring for a newborn child the way she was holding that puppet.
Yeah, it was a neat place just to sort of wander and look at the old buildings. And again, just sort of think about the history of, and they were explaining some of the other people that have performed there and recorded there and wanted to work there because of the history. But that wasn't the end of the day. And I think, Becky, this was sort of the first time we were sort of setting the stage for, there were things on the itinerary that they knew was coming, and there were some things that they did not know was coming. And once we got on the bus, that's when the first, the first surprise was when we eventually got there. But one of the things I was excited about, not just because it was time for lunch, was on our previous adventure, we didn't go and visit the Tam O'Shanter, but we went off on our own. 3 or 4 of us went off on our own one night because the Tam O'Shanter was one of Walt's personal favorite hangouts. That's where he would go and spend time with his staff, with his Imagineers. We talk about some of those places where a lot of that creativity and ideation probably happened, and we sat in the booth that Walt sat in. So now it's part of the Adventures by Disney. But again, once we got there and stepped foot into a place that has its significance in the history of Walt himself, that was where one of those first surprises happened. And I personally loved watching the faces of everybody as they came in.
As I realized who it was standing there. And I got to tell you, from what you were saying earlier, the hardest part for me is not giving away any secrets and keeping it all in and knowing the surprises are coming. But just like you, I was watching the faces of the people as they were walking in to see the wonderful little pixie that we all know is Margaret Carey standing there ready to greet all the guests for lunch. And it was so amazing to see everybody light up. And there was one gal who was there who her dream was just to meet Margaret Carey, and she had no idea.
She was crying. She walked in the door and started crying.
Yeah. So amazing. It really was a fantastic moment for me watching.
Yeah. So for those of you who are listening who don't know, Margaret Carey was the model that was used for Tinkerbell in Peter Pan. I think now she's about 176 years old, but she's got the spunk and fire of like a 25-year-old.
I don't think so.
Maybe not 176, but
he apologizes, Margaret. He apologizes.
I'm saying that as a compliment because she doesn't look it, and she certainly doesn't act it at all. You would never know because she is a little spitfire. So had anybody either wanted to meet Margaret before, was excited to meet Margaret, or because she came in and was showing us some of her personal mementos, and more importantly, was sharing a lot of her personal stories.
I loved hearing her 84 years of Hollywood. I mean, that's just those stories coming out of her mouth telling us about her being on Lassie. I mean, just all of the Tinkerbell, Mark Davis, Alice Davis, all the amazing stories and people, and being back in the studio with Walt and the Sherman brothers. And oh my gosh, I mean, she could go on, and I could just listen to her for days.
Anybody else? Katie, what was your thoughts when you came in and not just saw your plate of food, but more importantly, when you saw Margaret and got to hear some of her stories? And she gave a signed photo to everybody as well.
Yeah, that was a fantastic surprise. The original Tinkerbell, the sassy, the spunky, the jealous, feisty Tinkerbell is one of my favorite characters. So to see the live model reference and to hear her stories was absolutely fantastic. And you're right, she was something. She was so gracious to all of us with her time and meeting and talking to us afterwards. She was really special.
And it's funny because when she starts to talk about performing and doing some of the scene blocking and things like that, as she starts to go into some of her poses, you can see her poses sort of posed onto Tinkerbell in the animated film. So you can sort of make that connection from the live action reference model to her. Again, we had a wonderful meal there. We were able to see Walt's table where he would go. Now, Becky, they actually have a plaque on it designating exactly what that table was. But this really was, when we got on the bus, everybody thought that we had the night to ourselves in Hollywood, but this was the first very, very much unexpected, unscheduled surprise, and something that I personally had never done before, and for me was one of those emotional touch points.
Yeah, you mean the next step?
The next step.
Where we just
we hopped on the bus and
and it, like you, I had never seen it either, and this is one of those little extra pieces that that isn't typically added. We were transported from that wonderful lunch and that most magical moment with her up to Griffith Park so we could actually see the original merry-go-round that Walt got the inspiration for Disneyland with his family. And seeing that for me was a bucket list item. It also took me back to my father and my childhood, because I remember my father putting me on a carousel to reach that little brass ring when I was a little girl. So it was very emotional and amazing to sit on a bench and watch everybody have fun on that carousel, to see the owner who came to greet us. And they actually opened it just for us that day because it was closed that day. So it was open only for us to tour it and to ride it, and to see his passion for the history of that merry-go-round and to try to keep the spirit and the legacy of it alive. It was an incredible moment.
I think that's his passion for the preservation of the legacy and being able to ride on the horses and see some of they had a couple of benches there as well. I sort of imagined myself, as Walt watching my kids. But then I got that little sort of, and I went live from here because I thought it was such a unique experience. I got that little flutter in my chest when I rode on the horses. Anybody else thoughts on Griffith Park? Like it didn't start with a mouse. It started there at Griffith Park.
It's such a notorious story that all of us Disney fans, we know it started with Walt taking his daughters on Daddy's Day to the park and watching them on the carousel and wishing, wanting, and thinking, brainstorming about this place where families could enjoy time together. I had been there before, so it was great to go back, but it was so much fun watching everyone's reactions. And it is, for us Disney fans, it's kind of sacred ground.
And to actually be on that carousel that he took his daughters to, and to see the bench with his picture as we're going around.
Yeah.
I'm about to lose it right now, because actually going in a circle around, and it's like Walt is sitting there watching you. And that was where it started. Like I get goosebumps thinking about that moment again, because it was just so special.
And I thought it was interesting that they actually had actual horse hair on the tails of each of the carousel horses. There's a level of detail I never knew about.
Yeah, it's so well preserved, and the horses they're so beautiful and intricately carved. It really makes you sort of understand and appreciate, again, its place in Disney history. But wait, the fun didn't stop there, because we had lunch and we didn't have dessert. So they took us for dessert to for an ice cream social at Ghirardelli, right next to the El Capitan, which used to be the old, what was it called? It was called like the Disney ice cream shop?
Fountain?
The ice cream fountain. It was called the ice cream fountain. So they brought us into a private room there and let us pick anything off the menu. Yay.
It took us forever just to decide.
Just to decide. But I'll tell you what. So here's my one problem with that stop, is that when they give you the menu, they put the calorie count next to all the items. It's a bummer, man. It's a drag. I pretended it was like in Canadian and didn't do the math.
Did it stop you?
No, I mean, of course not. I gotta, I had to talk about it on the show, so of course I need to have a gigantic milkshake.
Oh, and it was so yummy.
It was a good way to end the day full of surprises with a little bit of a satisfaction for your sweet tooth.
Yeah, I mean, because I think most people probably had the legendary prime rib at the Tam O'Shanter, and this was a nice way to sort of wash that down. But this second night was one that we were able to spend on your own in Hollywood. And I think this is actually, I like this about the Adventures by Disney, is it does give you time, if there are things on your personal bucket list that you want to go do or see or eat, in my case, you can do that. So was there some place for any or all of you that you wanted to go to or visit or eat at that night? And if so, where did you go?
Well, I actually met up with someone who I went to high school with, who lives out there and works out there. She's an actress and a producer. So we met for dinner at Mel's.
Nice. And I think Mel's is cool, man. It's like one of those places I think you need to check off your list when you go to Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else go out to eat someplace or do something fun, different?
We went back to the Chinese theater, and then we also walked over to which hotel?
The Roosevelt.
Oh, the Roosevelt.
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to see it.
Yes, that was incredible. And seeing and it helped that we just went to the Tower of Terror and, talked about that and all the history behind that and the themings there. So it was really nice to see that.
Actually, my MEI agent suggested that because she knew that I'd love to see like some of the history stuff that comes back to Walt Disney World. So that was one of the things she suggested, and I just loved it. So that was fantastic. And then, of course, we stopped by the little rocker bar. I had to go see Cabo Wabo.
So the night before,
the guitars on the wall and check it out,
the night before for our welcome dinner, we were at the top in a private dining space at the Lowe's, and I was looking out the window. I saw the Magic Castle, and off in the distance, I see this what looks like a palace up on a hill, and I asked somebody there what it was, and they said, "Oh, that's Yamashiro. It's a Japanese palace that was turned into a restaurant." And he didn't have the word restaurant out of his mouth before I went on to Open Table to start making reservations. So Becky and I took an Uber up there just a couple of minutes, and it literally is a mountain palace. It's this hilltop mansion that these brothers built to house their collection of all these Japanese treasures. And it is it looks like a palace from the Yamashiro province near Kyoto. It was built, I think it was finished in like 1914, 1915. It was this open courtyard, Japanese garden. It was, Becky, like you could probably tell the glow and the smile that I had on my face just being there. First of all, it was spectacular. The view, there was a little shrine out front, but you want to talk about just such an old Hollywood, relatively sort of off the beaten path of sort of being on Hollywood and Sunset Boulevard, but such a nice meal that we had there.
Oh, absolutely. The courtyard that you're talking about had that open, very traditional Japanese garden that was so peaceful, sitting next to and listening to the water. And it was open above us, but yet they had some coverings that were making just a little bit of noise as the wind was coming through down in the area. So it was such a nice, relaxing dinner until the end. When all of a sudden, should I tell the story? Okay. We're paying the bill. We've had a wonderful, relaxing meal. We've talked about the 42 things we're going to do now between now and 2025, and we're getting ready to leave. And all of a sudden, the lights dim down to this romantic level. I'm like, okay, we need to get out of here fast.
Well, we saw there was a projector that was projecting a blank screen. I'm like, oh, maybe they're going to show like some sort of Japanese movie, or there's like a little documentary about the restaurant. And like you said, as we're leaving, things took a very different turn.
Yeah, because they fired up that good old projector, and it was Beetlejuice.
Yes.
Which I had this wonderful Japanese dinner, and it was just it was very odd.
It was, and I don't know if it was maybe because it was a Halloween season thing or something, but it was very sort of disruptive from the wonderful like peaceful Japanese music and the koi pond and the Zen garden, and then it's
Beetlejuice.
Right, which I would have loved to have stayed and watched because I dig that movie, but I had eaten my 18th mochi by that point and was ready to explode. And we had an early day the next day because I think for a lot of people, day 3 was something that was physically or mentally circled on the map, because this is the day that we visited not just Imagineering, but the Walt Disney Studios and the Walt Disney Archives. And this one was surprise after surprise after surprise. And just when you thought it couldn't get any better, it kept on getting better. So out of any of you, was this one of the things for you that was one of the reasons why this was the Adventures by Disney you wanted to take?
I wanted to see the Sherman Brothers stage. The stage.
So the studios for you was where you wanted to go?
Well, I definitely wanted to see the studio where Mary Poppins was, just all of the stories that you've heard from the days when Walt was there, and, the studios, and there's his office up there. But, I had no idea what was to come, but just walking in the footsteps of where he spent so much time, that was a big deal to me. I mean, the Sherman Brothers soundstage, that was a big deal to me, but it got better.
Anybody else? Was the studio something that was very much on? Because again, they talked about the studios and seeing, not just some of the memorabilia, but this private tour that we were going to get and eventually get to some of the surprises. But seeing where the magic was made and those old buildings that we've seen in movies or on documentaries, even having seen it once before, was something I was very much interested. We talk about walking where Walt walked. That's very much what the studios was for me.
Well, just to back up for a second, I mean, when we pulled into the lot, they were filming a TV show right there. I mean, you got to see the modern aspect of the studio right away. Yeah,
they were filming an episode of Blackish, and then we went to the commissary and ate at the commissary for which, sort of just, again, being in that space for me was neat. And there was sort of that, who's going to walk in, who's going to be here, and seeing some of the old buildings was a thrill. But we broke up into groups and got a guided tour of the studios themselves. Anybody, any thoughts in terms of what you saw, what you were feeling as you were experiencing it?
One of the things that I wanted to do was spend more time. We didn't have enough time. We went into that library where we held the Oscar, and I'm looking around and I found on the bookshelves old binders that were photo albums, and they were marked Walt with guests, Walt with dignitaries, Walt with and all these things, and I wanted to take them off the shelves and look at them. I really wanted to spend all that time and look at all those things, because these are things that probably nobody even looks at anymore. Which is a shame. But it would have been really fun to do that.
Right, because when we talk about the archives, and although we don't get to see the section that looks like the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, that giant warehouse, we do get to go into the Walt Disney Archives, and even in the space we were, in addition to the hundreds and hundreds of books, there was some really neat memorabilia, not just from Disney, but there was the Gonk droid from the original Star Wars. There was Adventurers Club stuff in there. There was it was sort of sensory overload, trying to look at things in the cases, on the shelves, and sort of even stuff on the walls and their connection. There was Rocketeer stuff. There was original Tiki stuff in there, animators' desks. There was a lot to sort of take in just in that space.
They had Walt Disney's badge for Disneyland, employee number 1.
Anything else anybody see in the archives that sort of piqued their interest, or was a highlight for them in the archives itself?
There was a nice display on Epcot's 35th anniversary. So it brought back that classic 80s Epcot. I think they had one of the original costumes worn by one of the cast members in Future World. So that was cool to look at.
I couldn't take photos fast enough while I was in there.
I was just looking at mine to see if there's anything I missed.
It was neat. They had the script from the Epcot film in there. And that was very
That's
cool
right.
to see.
That's
Yeah,
right.
out in the case, they had a lot of that early Epcot stuff in there. Even as we were walking through some of the halls later on, there was stuff from Lost. I was still am a huge Lost fan, and seeing some of those original props. But we're sort of dancing around. Going to the studios is awesome. Going to archives is like the very first time, and even this time I went, you do like, this is sort of the holy grail of things to see, because what I wouldn't give to sort of open up that door and walk into that warehouse and peek into some of those boxes. But this is where we got to do one of those things that no other group gets to do. And I don't think anybody had known ahead of time what was coming. This is something that was new for me as well. And that was being able to go and see and spend time and get a guided tour of Walt Disney's offices at the studios. And it's offices plural because he had a personal office, and then he sort of had a business office as well. Give me some thoughts. So, Katie, I see you smiling ear to ear when I mentioned Walt's office.
This was something that I hoped Beyond Hopes would somehow be included in our tour, and I was ecstatic when it came true. It's something we've all wanted to see. We've seen photos, but to get the tour of Suite 3H with the intro video and then go into both offices, I think a lot of us were speechless, especially when you're in Walt's office and there's the piano that we've heard Richard Sherman talk about playing for Walt on Friday afternoons. And it was beautifully restored. We had fantastic guides that explained things in the office, but there was a lot of emotion and just thinking about the things that happened, things that were created in those offices. It was overwhelming.
Anybody else, your thoughts or your feelings as we were spending some time? Because we were able to spend a lot of time in the offices too.
This is one of the ones that was a big bucket list for me because I had never been in there as well. And for me, hearing the story, and I know the story, but then to hear it and then actually walk in and look at it, the story being that after Walt had passed, the door was closed. And then Dave Smith was the first one to open the door to archive and catalog and record where everything was and how everything was placed. And then walking in the door and seeing it exactly as it was when he opened the door for that very first time, it was a very mixed bag of emotions because it was very joyful to be there to witness this, but yet very sad, but yet very respectful. And I think for the first, 5 minutes into the first office, I don't think any of us even wanted to breathe, let alone talk. It was so... I still can't find the one word that would explain the emotion behind it, but there was so much emotion to see the offices and to just close your eyes and you could almost feel like if you open them again, you could see him standing there or sitting behind his desk. It was amazing.
Yeah, there was a silent reverence. It was like walking into church, like you were being very quiet. And I think we were sort of overwhelmed with not just emotion, but trying to take it all in, because I think it's one thing to see pictures or, to see a recreation of his office on, the old Sunday night specials when Uncle Walt would take you to Disneyland, but to know that this is exactly, so much so to the point of not just where things were placed on his desk, but the order and the angle of the books on the shelves, where everything was on tables. Like I was taking in as much on a macro level as I could as on a micro level as much as a macro level, because I was looking to see his personal effects. Like what did Walt keep in there that was personal and special to him? So there were little figurines. There was obviously pictures of his kids. There was the stacks of some of the manuscripts and plans and scripts on one of the side tables. There was that wooden, and I don't know why I was fascinated by that wooden doll of Pinocchio that sat on the desk right behind him. Some of the framed pictures of people that were not family. There was a photo, I couldn't read a lot of it, but it looked like it was a cardinal, like a priest cardinal, that had signed something to Walt back from the early 60s. So I was wondering, I was imagining Walt in having to choose, why we put what we put in our offices, why some of those things were special to him. And then when you look at those desks and you see his personal effects, forget walking where Walt walked. Like, this is where Walt worked. This is where he spent his time. Like, I'm like, come on, Walt, like, give me some of that good juju, man. I wanted to, like, suck in all the, suck in everything that I could from it. But it was like, this is where he spent his time. This is where the ideation really took place. And again, there were the two offices. There was a private office and there was a working office that looked and felt akin, but were also very different in terms of the decor. His private office had a couch, it had the piano, but the working office had a little kitchenette. And, I'm sure Walt and some of his pals, may have taken in a coffee or a cocktail or six while they were in there. But, even like the picture of Walt in there making a salad or making whatever it was, looking very relaxed, and some of the effects that he had in there as well. I found myself spending maybe an inordinate amount of time just wanting to kind of take that room in. This was a much more, when I think back, this was a much more profound experience for me than I thought it would be when Becky and I were first talking about it.
Part of where my mind went was some of the documentaries and movies that I had seen. And I'm imagining him talking to P.L. Travers about Mary Poppins. And, I'm imagining, the secretary coming in and picturing where her office is. I mean, just compared to where his was. I mean, just the walk that she made and the cough that you could hear coming down the hall. And, I'm in those halls. It was a moment that took my brain to like explosion levels, with all of the different stories and things that I've heard over the years and researched. And I was standing there and looking out the windows that he looked, and the mountains of, California, just every inch of it. And it didn't help my heart right there to see Christopher Robin outside, which is, I'm the big kid that grew up and loved Winnie the Pooh, and like I didn't grow up.
I was saying, I'm not sure about the growing up part, but I know you love Winnie the Pooh.
But to look out those windows and see the studio there, and to imagine all of those things of the walk that she made, the secretary to bring dignitaries into him. And it was just a moment that you can't, I still get goosebumps thinking about it. And I'm, trying not to cry right now, because it took us to all of those days and those memories and the stories and the feed the birds and the, just imagining the songs coming out of that piano.
All it was missing was Richard Sherman sitting down and playing for us. So that would have taken us all out at that point.
There were a couple of things that struck me. So one was, if you remember, in his working office, his desk was very low, right? And because the two desks, the two chairs that faced it's so they can sort of get down and lay plans down and sort of work hard. But on three corners of this desk were ashtrays. And I'm like, come on, man. If you just would have cut out a little bit more chili, a little bit less cigarettes. But it was also the phone. Like, I remember, I don't know why, not just because it was a rotary phone and most of the people on the tour probably didn't know what that thing was. But I imagined Walt sitting back in his chair, on that phone, and some of the conversations that had probably taken place. I really tried to envision Walt sitting in there and what a typical day in those offices was like for him.
And as I was looking at it, I was taking pictures. Well, that's another thing. They allowed us to take pictures. And I was not anticipating that myself. So it was a little bit of extra magic thrown at me when I knew what was coming. But I tried to take it in as much as I could, but I knew I wouldn't remember it. So I snapped as many pictures of as many things as possible. And as you were entranced by some of the things in the room, so was I, especially like the models of the planes. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I was very enthralled with those pieces. And then, of course, in the other office where the map was still up on the wall and where they were working on the next project, and some of the things that were set up in front of it, that you could just, again, close your eyes and just imagine what a typical day was of people and meetings and people coming in and talking about what should go to this Florida project. And it was, again, one of those things I will never, ever, ever forget.
And I love seeing all the pictures of his family on the walls too. That family was as busy as he was. A man should never neglect his family for business, and family was still of paramount importance to him.
You mentioned him, with the cigarette ashtrays and, stuff like that. It just reminded me of some of the training videos I saw when I worked at Disney. And one of the things that they would tell us, was, back when I started at Disney, you couldn't have facial hair, and they didn't want smoking. And it was always, he was like the father, he would, say, do as I say, not as I do, but he instilled that, but he also was very firm and very fair in everything that he did too. So, he was like the father, he was like the good uncle on both sides. So it's just amazing how well he did everything that he did do.
Yeah, from there, we had gone out to the Legends Courtyard where all the handprints from the Legends was. One of the things I love about the Legends Courtyard is not just getting a look at the Team Disney building, but there's a replica of the partner statue there, but it's not up on a high pedestal. It's one that you can get up on and touch and take photos with. It was blaringly, wow, that gets really hot in the California sun. But I remember standing, I stood behind Mickey because I was feeling fluffy that day, and Walt's bus was sort of full of cobwebs, and I felt like I needed to sort of clean it off because I wanted it to be clean. And I don't know why. Like I remembered that I'm like, well, no, like, you know, this is supposed to be neat and clean because that's the way Walt would have wanted it. And again, it was from there that we had gone into the Frank Wells building to go and visit the archives before hopping back on the bus for the next leg of our journey, which was to head on down to Disneyland. But did any of you feel, as much time as we spent there, like you could have just spent all day at the archives and the studios, just sort of, oh, wait, I almost forgot. We got to go shopping. How could I forget? We got to go shopping. And this, for me, just from a personal perspective, this was, and there was multiple times on this trip that I sort of felt like the dad. And what I meant by that was when they told you that you were able to go shopping at the studios, everybody's eyes lit up. And mentally they're going, do I have enough credit? Can I actually, because I know I'm going to... Watching you guys go into the studio store was like taking my kids to Toys R Us. Like on Christmas, like just go in and have at it, because that's what it was. I mean, you guys were sort of just wide-eyed and so happy just grabbing stuff off the shelves. Anybody get anything really cool or blow their credit card out when they got to?
We got the Norman Rockwell, actually Mickey painting himself, and it was Walt, because I felt I had always loved that, but I always wanted that, but thought it was just perfect to get it there. So I was glad I waited the decades and got it there.
That does make it more special when you get it from the studio. I think I don't remember what I bought there. I think I got at least a couple of jackets, at least a shirt or two, some, oh yeah, they had cast member pins that they let us buy, which was, I think, David, you did too, didn't you? Isn't that you that got it? Somebody else got them too that was right in front of me.
I got the whole set.
Yeah, it's like, and I wouldn't have bought them unless you had, because it's like, oh my gosh, really? We get to get those? Because I assumed that we couldn't. And they were very gracious and opened up pretty much as much of the cast things as they could to us, which was really cool.
I got a few things, but she doesn't know, so I don't want to.
You mean you got them for her for the holidays is what you're trying to say. You're right.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen what's in that bag.
Christmas. It's not Christmas yet.
Did anybody, other than Becky, have to buy another piece of luggage to bring home all the stuff that they bought on this trip?
Well, you gave us a piece, so we didn't need it.
That's true. They gave us a duffel bag, yeah.
That's true. You got the ABD duffel bag. So as much as we loved the studios and the archive, again, the day just kept on getting better and better and better. From there, we went over to the Grand Central Air Terminal, which was at one point a working air terminal, for lunch. And it was an enjoyable but frustrating lunch because we knew that Imagineering was next. And I'm like, come on, eat fast. We got to just go. And we broke up into groups. And from there, went over to multiple buildings at Walt Disney Imagineering. And unfortunately, we weren't able to take any photos. And and we're going to talk about the thing that we saw, but talk about your experience at Imagineering, because there we got to see places like the Imagineering Library. We got to see some short documentary films. Who wanted to go at one point into some of those rooms and just open up a drawer? Like there were drawers that said, you know, Magic Kingdom, Fantasyland, and imagined the original artwork and some of the sketches and stuff like that was in there. Anybody sort of jump in and tell me about your experience and your thoughts literally walking through the halls on our guided tour of Imagineering?
Yeah, that vault in the library area, that had some really cool stuff I just wanted to tear into. If I remember correctly, there was some stuff about some old World Showcase pavilions that never made it to fruition, and I would have loved to see what was in those binders. Anybody else?
Or is it so hard to remember because there was so much you saw that was then eventually eclipsed by the way that the day ended?
Well, it depends on how the day ended. For
Well,
there was like 3 awesome things that happened.
I know. So let's because I know that everybody's thinking about the thing, but we were able to.
There's several things within the thing.
Right. So let's get to. So all right, let's start with. So I loved the library. I loved it. But so let's talk about the dish and what exactly the dish is. So way back when Imagineering would conceptualize and start to execute on an attraction, they would build a small scale model of it. They would actually build it, a few feet off the ground, so you could actually sort of walk through it. So you'd get sort of that first person perspective as if you were in your boat or your bateau or the perspective of the person who'd be riding. But it would be obviously a much more miniaturized version. For years they did that, and I think they still do build those models. But now, thanks to modern technology, they're able to use the power of technology to really enhance and get a better understanding of what that experience is going to be in terms of virtual reality and augmented reality. And the dish is basically a large room that's sort of a 270 degree-ish, 360 degree-ish screen on the walls and floor that will give you a virtual walkthrough of a park, or as we were able to do, sort of a virtual ride-through of an attraction. You put on virtual reality headsets, and we were able to sort of walk through Magic Kingdom and then ride through an attraction. So anybody share your thoughts about your time in the dish?
I felt like I was going to plunge to my death.
Okay, that's not how to sell the idea of the dish, because it felt so real, is what you mean.
Okay, because remember, what they did was they allowed each of us to put on the VR, and you walked into this wonderful land of whichever you were doing. And of course, we were in the Magic Kingdom. And they were able to then, from the center perspective, show you places and let you walk into things or off of the edge of things. Like I actually walked off the edge of being at the top of the castle, and it was so realistic feeling. You really did feel like you were walking off the edge of the castle and that you would plummet to your death.
It was freaky how real it was. Like you were sort of like reaching out in front of you to try and grab onto a railing that did not exist.
Yeah, your fight or flight takes over in 2 seconds flat when you're like, I can just walk. What do you mean you can just walk? There's no way. Your brain takes over in that virtual reality scenario, and you really do feel like you're there. It was incredibly cool. And then, of course, we got to do the ride as well, to experience it from sitting. But if you're from your perspective, you feel like you're actually tipping to the right or to the left or up or down. It was very realistic and very cool. And one of the technologies that I really appreciate about it is that they can now do a virtual reality of a proposed hotel room. So you can walk through it and you can see where the bed is placed. You could see where the bathroom is, so you know how much space you have to work around in. And I just think that technology is so amazing for them to be able to start it and adjust. Their test and adjust all the way through without having to invest a lot of money in something to make it real and just have to change it around. So I really love that technology. It's so cool.
Right. So we rode Radiator Springs Racers, a very early version of it, but you felt as though, even like you said, you were sitting in a sedentary position, you felt as though you were moving, and being able to look and get the perspective of what it looked like to your left, your right, and behind you is obviously not only incredibly valuable for them, but it's just very, very cool because it's so close. It actually mimics what we now see over at Disney California Adventure.
It was so realistic to what it ended up being, but you can imagine as they were starting to pull it together, trying to figure out, well, if we take them a little bit more to the right, then maybe we can go under this bridge and maybe we could see a waterfall. You can almost feel how the thought process would have gone as they were making those decisions.
Me, it was being like a geek that I am. The first thing I thought of was Star Trek as a holodeck.
Yeah,
it was that realistic in a sense that, other than the physical touching, it was that's what it reminded me of, this huge room that they created and could turn it into anything.
And it makes you think about, is this where we're starting to go? It was very much reminiscent of doing something like The Void, either in Disney Springs or in Downtown Disney, which the first time I did it blew me away. I did not expect it to be such a hyper-realistic experience. But you wonder, is this a technology that we'll eventually see in the parks in terms of interactive type experiences for guests? I would think so. Because that was pretty neat to see in how they were able to do it in a very, very relatively simple setting in that room.
It was hilarious to watch that they had one person with the sensor on and everything shifted to match their perspective. And they started them out in a virtual hub of the Magic Kingdom. And people were stepping over the fence that wasn't there in the middle. Like they would lift their legs clear up for something that wasn't there. It's just, and then you put it on yourself and you understood why.
So from the dish, now I'm trying to see, it seems like it was so long ago. So from the dish, we went over to, help me out here. Where did we go from the dish?
Well, we did the dish after the library.
Right, we went over to the library. But there was something else we saw there. We went over to the sculpture shop.
Sculpture room.
Right,
yeah.
went to the sculpture room, which again, unfortunately, you couldn't take any pictures, but there were hundreds of statues and maquettes and early and late mock-ups, as well as finished products of audio animatronic figures and props from throughout Disneyland and Walt Disney World, as well as small little vignettes of what the full versions would look like. There were so many cool things to see, from classic Mickey Mouse to the Snow White statues to Figment. I sort of gravitated towards a small vignette of the Country Bear Jamboree stage that was off in the corner. We saw a quote-unquote naked early audio animatronics figure, as well as some of some of the Blaine Gibson president sculpts and things like that. Anybody have any thoughts about what we saw, what we learned, and maybe even some of the personal things that you saw there that connected with you in the, for lack of a better word, the sculpture room?
The first thing for me was them telling the story of the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, on how they originally didn't have a quote unquote invoice because they were afraid that Walt would find out how much they cost. that was awesome to me.
And that the scale wasn't exactly right.
And one of the first things they noticed is, Snow White's not tall enough. So Walt said, "We'll make it happen," and they did. They put Snow White up higher, and you go up and see it, the next, couple of days later, and it's like, wow, okay, I understand now. So it's really cool to do that.
Anybody else? And even was there a figure in there that you just wish you could have put in your pocket or taken home and kept for yourself?
All the Haunted Mansion stuff.
Yes.
Oh, those are so cool. There's like 3 shelves that are nothing but Haunted Mansion little figurines. I have some shelf space right behind me. It would be great for that, in case anybody did grab one.
I would have taken any of the Figment statues.
Yeah, and it's amazing when you're because you're able to obviously get very, very close to them when you see the level of detail and the incredible artistry that it takes to create them. But look, let's talk about the giant elephant in the room, because one of the when we went into the library and you saw the thousands upon thousands of reference books and magazines, it's incredible what is at their disposal to obviously make sure everything is completely accurate. But when we went into that archive room where there was row after row and drawer after drawer of what we imagine are those original sketches of Fantasyland, those original plans for Epcot, I wanted to just open one of them and just see what some of those looked like. We saw a short presentation from one of the Imagineers. And then I think calling it the grand reveal is not really, it's almost an understatement, because they slid away from the front-facing wall in front of us. They revealed the sketch. They revealed the drawing. We know the story of Walt taking that original drawing to the bankers to sell the idea of Disneyland. There was a replica of it on display at D23 4 however many years ago. This was it, man. This is the one that Walt sat down over the weekend and, from his mind, those drawings were put down on paper. When they slid that away, one of you said this before, the air came out of the room. I mean, there was like audible gasps of breath seeing that gigantic sketch in front of you. Give me your thoughts when you saw it. Anybody, just bark them out.
I think I nearly dropped an F-bomb. Yeah, it was that majestic. It was just took your breath away as soon as they moved that partition over, and there it was staring you right in the face.
It was outstanding. When you were close to it, you could see all of the individual pencil lines and the indentations, and you couldn't help but think about that weekend and imagine Walt and Herb Ryman like pouring over that map, and how incredibly talented is Herb Ryman for pulling that map off. It. The detail was incredible. Seeing it in person, it's
a work of art. I mean,
it is.
We talk about expensive pieces of art and work of art. And it's one thing, I think, and this is what I sort of took away from this. It's one thing to see a movie or a picture or a video of a beautiful piece of art, right? Whether it's the Mona Lisa or whatever. This is a work of art. And it was interesting because in our group, we were divided into two small groups. Because, again, our ABD was only limited. We were, what, Becky, 34?
36.
36. So they broke us into two groups, and there was almost sort of, again, that sense of reverence. Like, we were sort of backing off away from it. So we did. And I'm like, I don't care. I got my little face, like a little kid, pressed his face up against the glass. I wanted to see, Katie, to your point, I wanted to see those pencil marks. I wanted to see the indentations. I wanted to sort of know that this is the one that literally, it was hand pressed, pencil on paper, and to see the detail and the shading and the intricacy and just how close that original weekend sketch ended up becoming to the place that we would walk on just hours later was fascinating to me.
Well, the part that got me, because I knew it was coming, obviously, and I do want to make sure everyone realizes that that's not something that's on the normal ABD going into the library. This was something that was special just for us. So if you're booking an Adventures by Disney, this is not something that would be included in a regular tour. But what got to me is after looking at that, and I've seen it several times when it's been on display in places, but there's one thing I forgot. And I was standing there and they were showing us the picture, and they were talking about the detail and about the legacy and the history. And then he told us about the part where they had used certain paint so that it would glow at night. And when they turned off the lights and hit that black light, and it just illuminated from a park from day to nighttime, I had forgotten that it did that. And it struck me like a ton of bricks in the back of my head of just the sheer beauty of that piece of art. And again, the air went out of the room, and that feeling of being in front of something very sacred to its history. It was very touching and very moving to see that piece of the history in front of us.
And that's when Anthony's potty mouth came out, because you couldn't help.
You remember it, don't you?
and let's be clear, we are doing what we saw a gross injustice, because there's no way to convey just how, not forget how important the piece is, But when you're right, when those lights went out and that the image completely transformed, you cannot articulate just how spectacular that is. And I don't think I'm underselling this at all, am I?
No.
No,
I've been needing to write about this for weeks, and I can't come up with the right words for those 3 times that air went out of the room. And hopefully I will find those words. So keep at it, you guys, because you'll give me an idea, hopefully.
What amazes me is that it was, they kept saying how it was drawn on, like just a basic storyboard. And it almost seemed like they were saying, this was like a first draft that, they went to Walt with and said, okay, this is what I have. And they were probably expecting him to say, okay, can we work on it more? And it was so special and so good. And, Walt said, okay, let's use this. And it was, to me, it was, it's an artist that, throw something together that quick and they're using it. It's such an amazing thing to see. The little ferry boat, it almost looked like a reflection on the water, the way the lights hit. It was just absolutely stunning.
To clarify for those listening, we actually got to see 2 fantastic pieces of art. First was the Ryman pencil drawing, but then they rolled that back and showed us the Peter Ellenshaw bird's eye view painting of Disneyland, and that's the one that illuminated with the luminescent paint. And so not only were we all emotional over the Ryman pencil drawing, but then they rolled back and had the Ellenshaw painting and all of the detail, and then the next level with turning the lights out. It was phenomenal. As a geek of the parks and park maps and the history, something I had hoped we would see, but seeing it's hard to describe.
I had no idea. That was a complete surprise to me to be able to see it and get that close to it. And I think that was, again, one of those things that really sort of, I could have just stared at that for hours.
And for the Imagineer, he was apologizing to us. He's like, I'm sorry it's such a tight space, but we don't do tours back here. And it was just, it was such a special feeling that, becoming a part of this exclusive group where they could change some things around just for us. And they knew that we were all in such Disney geekdom, that we love this. We want to know everything about it. Just being in the room with it was just that moment, that special thing. Just being able to say to the Imagineer, I don't know if it meant more to him or me, but I just said, thank you for taking care of this. And just that moment that he and I shared, because he knew what it meant to us, and to just be able to say to him, thank you. It was just to see it, to actually see, like I've done pitches and sales things before, to actually see that notebook that was the pitch, that, that's what Roy took to New York, and that's how they got the money backing from the bank. Like, I wanted to flip through that and see all the words in there. That was just unbelievable. I could not even imagine anything that special.
It's just a shame that it is, locked up in this warehouse that no one really ever sees. I really wish they would, create a museum for it. There's a lot of people like us out there that would love to see this stuff. And that would pay a lot of money to see this stuff. So it's just a shame that a lot of this stuff is never seen by anybody.
David, go ahead.
They do roll it out. They bring it out like the times that I saw it was at D23 when they did Expo. They had put them on display at some points, but I share that feeling that it would be nice to be able to go and see this stuff when you want to see it. But then again, I also appreciate the ability to have that special moment to actually see this without having it on display on a constant basis where it might be damaged. So I think that the caretakers are doing a really good job of making sure that legacy and that art stays safe for future generations to witness as well.
David?
You mentioned they split our group up, and our group went and saw the paintings first, and the other group went to the dish. But then they pull us out of that room, and we have to walk by the other group, and they're telling us act like nothing happened. And we're all just shell-shocked.
If you think you like the dish, wait till you see what's next. And again, you were able to go shopping, which I think I saw a little bit of running as you guys were approaching the Imagineering store, because again, this is a place that is obviously normally off limits to guests, and you're able to get the same Imagineering gear that they are. Anybody pull anything really cool from Imagineering?
Yes. No, I'm thinking. I have the suitcases behind me, and I haven't opened it yet from having it shipped here. You actually found it for me. All I heard was, "Becky, you want to see this?" And I thought it was a joke. I thought it was going to be some sort of Wicked Queen outfit, or a poison apple, or something of that sort. But no, you were holding an SEA sweatshirt, which of course is something that I am jonesing for. Anything that is the Society of Explorers and Adventurers. And I can't wait till we see more of that. And we need to see more of it. But that's the first time that I've seen any merchandise that had the logo on it that we saw in Tokyo Disney Sea, where I wanted you to shimmy up the light pole and pull down the banner that was hanging there, but you wouldn't do it for me. So at least you found me a really cool sweatshirt. So I have you to thank for that.
Yeah, again, it was that same feeling of watching, your kids go into Toys R Us and just go crazy and go shopping. But we once again had to board the bus and leave 1401 Flower and head on down to Disneyland, because, and again, it wasn't just going to be your first night in Disneyland, go and have at it. We went down to Disneyland, checked into the so very lovely Grand Californian Hotel. Halloween was in full swing. I love the decorations and the giant Oogie Boogie pumpkin in the lobby. But that night they gave us tickets to the Mickey's Halloween party over at Disneyland. So for me, this was the first time I was able to experience the party on both coasts and some of the neat things they do, like with the cadaver dance on the rivers of America, and obviously the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay of Haunted Mansion. And again, there is that extra special touch that we were able to get that doesn't not only happen for regular guests, obviously, but doesn't happen on normal Adventures by Disney tours, which was to hear from and I'm going to obviously get his title wrong, the show director, the show creator, show producer, Joe something. I don't remember his name. It was late, and I did not have enough Reese's peanut butter cups that night. But before we went in for what would be the final ride of the night, he explained the history and the backstory and the details and the gingerbread house, things to look for on the attraction. We rode and then came back out and were able to spend more time with him after the park had closed for a little bit of Q&A. So once we got to see that, we were able to talk to him a little bit more. I know for a lot of you, this was the first time you guys saw the Nightmare Before Christmas overlay at the Haunted Mansion, yeah?
Yes.
What did you think, Anthony?
I thought it was really cool. Yeah, just and this is my first time seeing the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland, obviously, as well. So just walking up to that building and seeing the decorating for Halloween with the Nightmare Before Christmas, and then stepping inside, it was pretty much a whole new ride experience for me.
Anybody else? Thoughts on the Nightmare overlay?
I had seen it about 8 years ago, and I agreed with Joe. They keep adding things, doing things that I didn't see before. The first time I went in it, Sally wasn't there. A couple of the things that weren't there, and it just kept getting better and better. And we went on it probably 4 times.
Yes.
Just because I'm a huge, my birthday's Halloween, and I've always been a fan of that movie. So it was just amazing to see it again. So.
And it was fun talking to the Imagineer, because then his name is Joe, and then you start looking for Joe's inside there on the boxes and on the labels, and then you're like, oh, that's him. There's our guy. So, it was just the extra little touches and all the details that he explained.
Yeah, I really liked being able to compare and contrast the Disneyland Halloween party versus the Walt Disney World and eat all of the snacks along the way. But it was a late night, and it was also an early morning because, again, as part of the adventure, we were able to get early access into Disneyland. When I say before the park opens, I mean there's nobody in Disneyland. Main Street USA was exclusively ours. It was very fun and interesting to see how many and how creative many of you got with your I'm going to lay down right down in the middle of Main Street USA and do your Becky pose.
Do the Becky pose.
Do the Becky pose, sitting Indian style in front of that. Part of the reason why we were able to do that was we were able to be greeted by one of the Disneyland ambassadors, take some cool pictures in front of the castle. And the 360 one we took came out awesome, by the way.
That was great.
And then had breakfast over at the Plaza Inn and got visits from like 20 different characters. Like it was a cavalcade of characters and an oh so very delicious breakfast as well.
I love that restaurant too, because you never know who you're going to meet. There's all kinds of like old school stuff that you never see anywhere. Rabbit.
Yeah.
Rabbit was there. The fairy godmother was there. Honest John. Wait, wasn't Honest John?
Honest John.
Yep.
Yeah, he was there from Pinocchio.
Who else, Katie?
Rafiki.
Oh, that's right. Rafiki was there.
But it was so nice to be in the park with nobody else there. I mean, we did see a little taping of Disneyland Dancing with the Stars, was it, over in the corner? Not necessarily where we were, but then we got to see some little hidden things that, like Peter Pan and Wendy did a little thing, like a little carving in the tree, and certain little things that they would point out to us that I hadn't noticed before in the years that I visited. So we had some fun, special moments to ourselves before.
Yeah, I saw some people had taken screenshots from the Dancing with the Stars, and there's our group walking behind Lori behind one of the taping pieces, and so people had done screen captures and were posting those. That was really cool.
Yeah. So and this day was entitled Walt's World. This was our day in Disneyland. So Becky, tell us a little about what we did before we had a little bit of time to, in my case, eat my way through the Disneyland Resort.
Which part? I'm wondering exactly what you're talking about.
So we were able to get a tour of some of the classic attractions.
Well, remember, I was staged in one very special place. I didn't get to do all of the tours that you guys all ran around to, because the last and the big reveal of where you're going on that tour was where I was staged for all three of the segments. So do you want to go there first?
You were in the lounge all day. We get it. All right. So
no, I was nowhere. I didn't even go to the lounge that day, just so that you know. But
I know you were I saw you had the shakes by the end of the day that you hadn't visited.
Wow.
Throughout. So Katie, why don't you explain a little about what we did that day in terms of our tour of Disneyland?
Sure. So one of my favorite things that we got to do early in the day is go backstage at the Indiana Jones attraction in Disneyland. And that is unique to Disneyland domestically. And it was really cool to see how big the vehicles were and how much goes into keeping that attraction operational. I was exceptionally interested going into it, and then our backstage attraction visit the next day, because there are two attractions that have a little bit of a reputation for going down at times, and the cast members were refreshingly honest, and based on what they told me or told all of us, I'm surprised the attractions aren't down more often.
I'm surprised the attraction actually works, considering how complex they really are.
So much that could go wrong, and but we just know the ride experience. So it was really great seeing that backstage, kind of the backstage magic that makes it happen for us as guests. And all of the cast members that we spoke to were so knowledgeable and generous with their time. So that was a highlight of that morning at the park.
And you don't realize how big that vehicle is until you're standing next to it.
No, they're huge.
Yeah, and just how complex of a ride system and mechanism it really is. And just how much of another world there is backstage to keep all the stuff on stage going.
That's exactly right.
It was cool to hear him talk about Indiana Jones versus Dinosaur and how they kind of taught the people here some things, and they built the ride vehicles over there, and although it's very similar of a ride, it feels so different. So you have such a different experience on both of them. So to hear them discuss it, and we got to ask, are you ever on conference calls with the people on this coast, and you share different experiences of what makes it go down, how do you fix it, what are you experiencing over there? It's so interesting to hear them talk about those details that we would never even think of.
And so this is a perfect example. In the interest of full disclosure, this is a perfect example of, with all the highlights of all the different days, I literally don't remember what the other attractions were that we visited on our tour.
You were trying to hand that off to me.
I absolutely was trying to hand it off because I completely forgot.
Which is a good thing, I guess, in a way.
Right, because there were so many highlights that I couldn't remember everything that was going on throughout the day. I do remember my chimichanga. I will, as long as I'm being clear.
Surprise.
Yeah.
I remember 7 fast passes. That was pretty awesome sauce.
Oh, right. We had the card with the fast passes on them.
Fast passes are hard to get at Disneyland. You have to have the Max Pass. So if you don't have Max Pass, being able to be handed just this treasure trove of fast passes is a pretty special deal. So that was really cool too, because then we could use them wherever we wanted to on some of them. Others were actually timed for us as well. So even in our downtime, like I said, one of the things I really appreciate about Adventures by Disney, especially in a park experience, is that there is time that they can just say, go and experience the thing that is important to you. So you're not always with the group all the time, but then they also give you little extra plus ups like fast passes so that you're less inconvenienced. You don't have to wait in line, and you can do a lot of different things that is important to you.
Right. And we were, so now it's starting to come back to me now, because we met for the Pixar Play Parade during the afternoon, and our guides, who are awesome, went and got us all Dole Whips, and delivered them. Like, again, that's Becky Mankin style right there.
We were VIP area.
We were definitely, we had our own viewing area. He brought us Dole Whips. We were able to spend most of the day on our own, and then at night we also had the private viewing area for the
Fantasmic.
Fantasmic. Yeah. That's right. Because the night before we had seen the Halloween parade, and then Fantasmic was that night. See, when you get old, all the days start to blur into one another. Again, it was a late night, early morning the next day. Where
you forgot the big thing.
You forgot the big hello. Where was I for three rounds of people? We were able to do something that only Adventures by Disney does in Disneyland, which is visit Walt's apartment.
Oh my! How did I forget that?
I don't know.
Jeez Louise, man.
Walt's apartment is it is a place that every Disney fan has to visit and stand there and look out the window from the other side to see people walk into his park. And when you walk in, I'd love to hear everybody's impression of what you thought it looked like as opposed to what the reality was, because it kind of is a shocker for the first time when you walk up there.
I enjoyed walking up those back steps. I'm like, are these the steps that he went up? I mean, you always wonder, is there a special entrance and, that kind of thing. And just being in this space where you could see all of the things in the apartment, that's where he had his glasses, right? With the WED on it. And or was that in his?
That was his office.
That was his office.
Had that, but he had the
carpet with
the Tom and Jerry.
Yeah.
Yeah. and the grilled cheese sandwich maker.
Oh, yes.
It's the original that they dare not plug in because it would probably electrocute everybody within a mile radius.
But to realize how small it was, like I would have imagined like a little bit more, but he actually didn't spend as much time in there as I had imagined in my little mind of.
I had seen some of my friends have gone there before, so I had seen a couple of pictures, not a lot, but to actually be there and to see some of the things and to look out onto the Main Street USA, it was awesome. To be somewhere that, everybody that walks by, 90% of the people that walk by that have no idea it's there, and, Walt knowing that, that's a bird's eye view of seeing people come in and seeing the kids, get all excited about running down the street and going to the castle. That's an amazing thing to be able to see. And you're doing it too. You're looking at people come in for the first time.
I really like how the guides very much humanize the experience. And what I mean by that is they talk to you about Walt would sleep here, Lillian would sleep here. She picked out this rose pattern. He did this. It made it more relatable to Walt, the person, the human being, not Walt, the head of the company, the creator of Disneyland. Becky, when we did this years ago, again, we were sort of we were competing with our schedules for setting up for D23 Expo. That was my first time ever there. I definitely had that very emotional response to it. And, you go in and you see, you want to sort of sit where Walt sat, and you can't sit on the couches. And obviously, I would have laid down on the couches, but you are in this space that Walt occupied. And for me, that wasn't where I really wanted to go, because if you went around the corner, there was a very small dressing area. There's a steps out to a private balcony, but there's also Walt's bathroom and Walt's shower. And at the time, I guess I was able to do it because I did it. You can't do it anymore. I went into Walt's bathroom. I kept the seat down, but I sat down. You guys walked where Walt walked. I sat where Walt sat, because let's admit it, that's where all the really good ideas came from. It wasn't in his office. It wasn't wandering the streets. I'm like, come on, Walt. I want some of the inspiration. But that space too, it screams, late 50s, early 60s with the color palette and like the 19 shower heads that he has in his very dated looking bathroom. But yeah, again, to be able to be in that special space that was very personal to Walt the man is
which is interesting now, because they now stage a cast member there, so you can't go past.
Yes, I know that.
And you're actually now escorted in there, so I have a feeling other people may have tried that, or maybe they just caught you on circuit TV.
I did it once. That's all I needed. I had my moment. Walt and I shared. We shared a very special moment. Okay, so now did I forget anything on the Disneyland day?
Yeah, I was just going to ask or interject one more thing. They did allow us to do one thing, because we're not supposed to take pictures in the apartment. What they did allow was the guides to take pictures of each family right next to the window as well. So that's one of those things, a highlight, a takeaway from that experience that I think everybody will cherish, because they did a picture of the group that was in there together, and then they took individual family pictures. And I was looking back through the pictures and noticing just the happiness on their faces when they're looking out that window, and the light is just coming on everybody's faces. It was one of my very favorite pictures of the group. Was those individual pictures by the window.
So the next morning, again, early morning, we had breakfast. And again, to be clear, other than the time that you're on your own, all the meals are included as part of the adventure. So we had a group breakfast together, a character breakfast at what I love, Storyteller Cafe, by the way, at the Grand Californian. And then again, early access into Disney California Adventure. If I'm getting my timing correctly, we all rode Toy Story Mania, got a tour of Carthay Circle, and then went over to Cars Land?
Radiator Springs.
Yeah.
Right. We went over to Radiator Springs, and that is where we got, I'm trying to remember the timing. Is that where we went backstage
Backstage.
at Radiator
Backstage,
Springs.
Which was fascinating. Yeah, I had never seen the backstage of that area. I kind of peeked in, but I had never been up on that second level where they bring in the cars to for maintenance. But the screen that's above, where it shows where every single car is and which one might be giving them trouble and which one is, when they're all green, everybody's happy and nobody's doing anything. If one goes red, how it shuts down. And I know he was telling us really fascinating things about the ride and the maintenance of the ride. I was transfixed by that screen, just watching the cars go around and where they are. And oops, one just went down while we were there. And we got to see the process for how they determine what happened to that one car and what could be the problem with it and how to remove it from the track and how they restart. I just had a really good time learning about that, because especially Radiator Springs, it does go down a lot and you really don't know why. And some of the information that we were given, now I have a very detailed and clear understanding, and we'll have a lot more patience next time
Right.
that it comes to.
Yeah, it was really neat to sort of, and we spent a lot of time backstage too, really getting to understand the inner working of the vehicles and the track and the ride system and the cast member roles in all that. The only thing that was somewhat frustrating with that was that it was keeping me from my cozy cone. So I was, come on, man, speed it up. I got to get out there. And I think when you do that and then ride the attraction, you have a greater appreciation for it as well. So after the tour, I think we were on our own, correct? We had some fast passes on our own, and we were able to sort of spend the afternoon at California Adventure.
Yeah, they gave us 5.
So what did you ride, Anthony? What did you choose to ride with your fast pass?
Soarin' too.
Oh, we did do Soarin'. That's right. We went back. Thank you.
We did
See,
Soarin', and then
this is why we do this as a group, because we all can't remember. Right? We went backstage. We went under the screen in Soarin' and got a sort of a backstage tour about the design and the execution and the sense that the smells. When I say sense, SCENTS, the sense of Soarin', and then experience the attraction, and then experience the attraction from behind the screen to really get a sense of just how big, just how complex, how loud that system is down there too.
And I had not known, I knew about a couple little Easter eggs, but I didn't know that there's a hidden Jack Sparrow in there. I learned that little tidbit, and so now I have to look for him next time I ride, because I now know where he is. But
he's on the beach, cool, right? He's on the beach.
Yeah, he's on the beach.
We also got to touch the Soarin' screen, which felt a lot heavier than I would have imagined.
Yeah, I mean, if I was tall enough, I'm sure I could have reached to be able to touch it too. So, so yeah, it was right. So it was after that we had lunch and time on our own at California Adventure. All right, very quickly, what was the best thing you ate at DCA? Cozy cone, other than the cozy cone.
Does the dinner at Carthay count?
That could count.
Then that'll have to be it. Yeah.
We had a Jack cookie.
Oh, the Num Num cookie.
A Num Num. It's a cookie Num
stuff.
Num.
Oh, that was amazing.
The churro cake.
I didn't have the churro
Wait,
cake.
what?
I didn't either. What?
We got to go back, Kate. We got to go back.
What was that?
It's a seasonal limited item at Paradise Garden
What?
Grill. It was a churro cake. It was beautiful and delicious.
How did we miss that?
Because I was at the cozy cone. That's how I missed it. Okay, so we had some time on our own, and only because we're running relatively-ish long, and I do want to be able to spend some time recapping. Our insert sad emoji here, our farewell dinner was at the Carthay Circle Theater. Again, we were able to tour the location earlier in the day. We had a private room that night. We all got the Glow with the Show ears, and then had a private viewing area for what is far and away my favorite parade right now, which is Paint the Night. I just love the floats. I love the music. I love the energy about
this again.
Well,
Like,
that's
you just keep singing that as you're walking away.
And that was part of the conversation that we had at our farewell dinner, and we will touch a little bit on what we have planned going forward. But the next morning we had our farewell breakfast at Steakhouse 55 at Disneyland Resort, and unfortunately, our week-long adventure had come to an end. And as long as we've gone and as much as we've covered, like, we still didn't hit all of the things that we did and experienced. But I would like for you guys, if you had to pull out one moment, one thing, something that was most impactful or memorable for you, and when you talk to somebody about this Adventures by Disney trip, this is the thing. This is the thing for you. So, Beatrice, Katie, Anthony, David, in that order.
Wow, the thing. I've been trying to figure that out for the past 2 weeks because I have like 5 top things. I would probably say the surprise of going into Walt's offices to see like where his secretary and where he really worked, because I know the long hours that he spent there and the nights that he spent late nights there working, and we didn't expect that. Like I had said before, there were so many bucket list items before I even knew of the unexpected surprises. So as much as I knew I would love it, I loved it that much more. And it just, the first 30 seconds I was there, I got off the plane and, there's someone there ready to take us to the hotel with our name on it. Like there was so much of a comfort level from the second that I got there to where I felt like we were very important and taken care of. We were in the best spots. We were fed. Every time we got on the bus, there's water, there's snacks, we just felt so important and so taken care of. And there were so many amazing surprises that I couldn't have imagined it to even be close to what it was. To honestly, the carousel, like everything, I couldn't have imagined it to even be close to where it was. And that's why I select to take it with you guys rather than just booking Adventures by Disney on my own, because I know that I can get so much more. I know that like the first 30 seconds of meeting Michael and Lori, they were friends. He saw my purse and we were talking Disney races. We were like in the first 30 seconds, he was family. And it just, there was so much of a comfort level and I just all wrapped up into one thing. I would just say that Disney hug, that they take care of you and everything is magical. So I can't select one of that, but I would just say the feeling that we get out of it.
I think that's a perfect, incredibly well articulated way of putting it. And I loved, look, I've known you for a long time. You radiate joy. Like you never have nothing but a smile on your face. But when I saw multiple times, and I'm not meaning to call you out or embarrass you, but there was multiple times that smile of joy turned into tears of joy. I'm like, she's having a good time. She's really enjoying this, and you're feeling that Disney hug.
I would have chosen this, and then the next day, of all the places that I wanted to go, I would have chosen this. It got better and better, and it's just that feeling of trust, and to know that going with you guys is going to give that much extra than I could have got on my own. I would put that as my number one, because the experiences, everyone was trumped by the next thing that we did. It was amazing. But just the whole hug of it all was probably my.
I like that. The hug of it all.
Yeah.
I like it's all about the hugs, because I am a hugger. Katie, what about for you?
On a Disney nerd level, I can't top the office visit and the maps that we saw at Imagineering. On a personal level, I want to thank Lou and Becky for putting this community and organizing this trip. It was great. Each one of these trips, you meet new friends. And Anthony and I were actually table mates on the Double Dip cruise last June. And so it was great reconnecting with him. So reconnecting with old friends, meeting new friends, a lot of the people in the community that you guys have developed and fostered have become close and dear friends. So on a personal level, it's those relationships, but there's definitely those Disney nerd bucket list items I hoped we would see, and you guys made happen. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate it. And it is, it is about the community. And, when I say friends and family, like that's how we feel, even if the friends, whether we've met yet or not, is not just a line. It's something that I believe in. And it's trips like this that very much are a testament to that. And has nothing to do with me. It has to do with you guys. I say all the time, I built the clubhouse, but you guys are the ones that populate it. And I love seeing the friendships and the relationships form. I guess it is maybe the dad in me. So, tablemate Anthony.
Yeah. So having never been to Disneyland and always been fixated with Disney history, this trip really knocked my socks off, so to speak. The time, I think I was with you and Becky when we were in that mini group in Walt's office and just looking around and taking it all in. And I came across, he had a map, I think, of Disneyland in his office. And they had a haunted mansion pointed out and said there was a home of 1,001 happy haunts. So two must have flown the coop at some point, because I'm not sure where they went. So, it was just so cool just to be in that atmosphere and environment where Walt Disney had lived and worked for so many years. And then going to Disneyland the next day, I told people I went full kamikaze mode that day in Disneyland. I was there from 6:30 in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. No break. They didn't go back to the hotel at all. And, I took it all in, and we got to go to Walt's apartment that morning, and it was great to get the picture overlooking Main Street. And then walking out of Main Street that night, I just have a picture of the apartment with the candle lit in the window. I thought it was a good bookend to that day.
David, what about you?
I mean, that day 3 was something special. You started out the morning in Walt's apartment. You spent the afternoon looking at that Herb Ryman drawing. And then in the evening, I got to go to Disneyland for the first time. I don't have a wife. I don't have kids. I can honestly say that was the best day of my life without somebody coming after me for it. And then the next day, I got to go to Cozy Cone for the first time. So, I mean...
We were together.
Like
we got your first
they like to make people cry, and they succeeded.
Yeah, and I know we had talked a little bit at the Cozy Cone and over by the statue of Walt and Mickey, and it was an amazing trip, not just as a participant, but again to watch to watch you guys and enjoy it individually as well as enjoying it collectively. One of the questions I had asked at our final dinner, and I think again the next morning, was, okay, we're already thinking ahead. What do we want to do next? We already have Japan on the books, and at this time, well, actually about a week ago, with this time next year, we will be in Japan from, what is it, Becky, that 13th to the 23rd,
and then you add
a couple
on
days, and
20-ish if you add on or not.
If you liked Adventures by Disney to Hollywood, you're gonna love Adventures by Disney to Japan.
Oh yeah,
that is the one I'm counting down, and there's already conversations about possibly going to the motherland and heading over to Italy, as well as maybe a domestic Adventures by Disney. Katie's shaking her head. It was interesting. One came up in conversation that was not on my radar, and everybody collectively was like, yeah, Big Daddy, we're in. So
Mine too.
There's conversations already starting to happen, and who knows? Maybe an announcement to come at some point soon. And then, Becky, obviously all the things that I haven't told you that I want to do.
And that's usually a huge list, and I have no idea.
There's a lot of things on that whiteboard
I know
up
you're
there.
staring at it right now.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I have on my whiteboard that
I'm going to be back in December. I think you should show that to me for
I'm
Christmas.
going to hide.
I think that should be my Christmas present.
I'm going to hide
Take some
the
stress
whiteboard
off of me. Let me know what I have to work on for the next 5 years.
So, and listen, the obviously a huge amount of gratitude has to go to Becky. There's a lot of logistics that happen behind the scenes to make these trips happen. And to all of your points in terms of making those extra special things happen, it does not happen by accident. There's a lot of work. There's a lot of time that goes in, and certainly it couldn't happen without Becky Menken from MEI and Mouse Fan Travel for all your vacation planning needs. But it's true, and I appreciate all that you do, and that's why the trust that we have in doing these kind of trips and doing these kind of trips as a group is so very well placed, because to all of your points, it's not about matching or meeting the levels of expectation. It's about exceeding them and making those wow moments even more special, and then trumped by the ones that follow thereafter. And that's what I know you do, Becky, and that's one of the things that I like to do as well. And that's why this partnership and relationship and friendship, dare I say, has worked for so long.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you and all of you for giving me that opportunity to put some of the things that I've wanted to do on paper and present it to the people I did, to say, this is things that I want to do too. But, for you and I, we sat down a couple of years ago and said, what would be special? What would make this special? And to make my dreams come true, and to watch your faces as some of these really special, magical moments were presented to you. You made my day when I got to see your faces enjoy these things that Lou and I had been working on and planning for so long, and to see it on your faces come to fruition, that meant the world to me. So thank you guys for indulging me as well.
Yeah. And again, there's, we covered a lot. We left out a lot. We didn't even talk, and don't say what, there was a little surprise that everybody got, a little takeaway everybody got at the end of the day, which was a nice little reminder and token of this trip. The photos are wonderful. The stories are great, but it's the memories and the stuff, the time that we shared together that made this trip so special for me. Yes, it was Walt's office, and yes, it was seeing the paintings, but it really was. This trip would not have been the same if I had gone by myself or just with a couple of people. It's because of you who were there. So I would love to hear from you, our friend, the listener who's sitting there virtually around the table. Where would you like to go next on a future WDW Radio group, friend, family trip? If it's an Adventures by Disney, where would you like to go? Is it a cruise? What's the destination? What's the ship? If it's something else, let me know. You can let me know a couple of different ways. You can call the voicemail at 407-900-9391. Plead your case to the jury. Tell me where you want to go and why. You can also go to our Facebook group. Go to wdwradio.com/community. That is our Box People group. That's where the community and conversation should take place. And if you have any questions, obviously, about any of these trips or a trip you want to plan on your own, you can go to mousefantravel.com. Beatrice, Brian, Anthony, I'm Wacko for Flacco, my friend David Potts, and of course, Katie, I'll see you in Japan, Kun. Thank you guys so very much. And as we sort of wrap up our thing, very quickly, around the horn, if you can remember, the best thing you ate on your Adventures by Disney. Go.
Oh, it's the ice cream at Ghirardelli.
Prime rib at Tam O'Shanter.
I think I have to go with Bengal barbecue.
Oh, we had a nice time at Bengal barbecue. Oh, so much. So many barbecue skewers. We literally ordered everything off the menu. That was a nice day. That was a good day right there.
That was good.
I was with you there, Lou. That was a fun meal.
I've never eaten there before.
It's because it's counter service. Katie?
I'm looking through all of my food pictures. And
Stan.
There was so much of it.
There was so much of it.
I ate so many snacks.
Part of it is that first day, Lou, when you and I got there beforehand, and we went to that little Japanese restaurant in the mall that is the worst designed mall in the world. That was really good. I think you ate like 4 or 5 full plates of sushi.
The waitress literally was like, "Are you sure you want? Is there anybody else? Like, is there 4 more people coming?" I'm like, "Don't worry, sister, I got this." and I ate it all. I ate mine and some of yours.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. But that was good. That was a good.
That was delicious. We had a nice breakfast that morning at Mel's, right? I mean, I'm trying to remember. Like
burger and a milkshake.
Yeah, we did Mel's too.
We did breakfast, and it was good.
We did. We had it was a nice cup of coffee, just sitting there, planning for the future.
Like a real diner experience, you know? I like that.
Oh, Yamashita was good too. The Japanese restaurant. Katie, I'm doing the same thing. I'm like quickly scrolling.
Almost, yeah. I'm never gonna forget that.
I'd be remiss if I didn't say Cozy Cone too, like just because I love it so.
A classic.
How many Cozy Cones did you actually have?
This was a disappointing trip for me because I only had one.
I didn't even think you got one. Did you actually get one?
I did. And then I stayed a couple of extra days to speak at a conference, so I was able to sneak out to Flo's the next morning for breakfast. It was so delicious. In the shadow of Radiator Springs and the music and beautiful weather. Oh, it was so nice. Oh, and the little fried cheese balls at Carthay Circle. I ate the entire basket myself.
Oh, those are
yes,
good.
You did.
Yeah.
You didn't share.
Don't laugh at me, Katie Coon. They were going to waste. They were sitting there.
And I went to one of my favorites in New Orleans Square. I got the bread bowl and the gumbo in there.
So nice.
Yeah.
The pumpkin spice beignets were phenomenal.
Where did you find those?
In the Julep Bar.
Man, I gotta follow you around when you man. I missed out on all the good stuff.
There was, I mean, as long as we were there, there's still a ton of places that I didn't get to eat while we were there too. So.
That means we have to go back. When can we do this again?
We're going to be out there for D23 Expo in July, August. I don't know when D23 Expo is.
It would be August.
August, yes. That's when we're going to be out there for D23 Expo. So we'll
go early.
I have a little idea for something to maybe add on to that D23 trip.
So apparently we need to talk.
Possibly.
When can we?
Awesome. Well, thank you guys again for a memorable trip, and yes, we will definitely have to do this again.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lou.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
I'm starving, by the way. Just FYI, I'm famished at this point.
Cookie num nums.
Those are awesome.
Who just grunted? Was that Katie? Was that Katie grunting at the cookie num nums?
Beatrice.
That was Katie's stomach grumbling for the cookie num nums. It's time for our Walt Disney World Trivia Question of the Week, where I invite you to test your knowledge of Walt Disney World's history or see how well you pay attention to the details, sometimes in what you see, sometimes in what you hear. If you think you know the answer, you can enter via our online form for a chance to win a Disney Prize package. Before we get to this week's question, we're going to go back, review last week's, and select our winner. So last week I brought you over to Disney's Hollywood Studios, specifically the Muppet Vision 3D Courtyard. I still love the attraction, the jokes, and all of the gags, both inside the queue and outside in the courtyard. And in fact, there's a beautiful, funny fountain out there that's full of little gags and details, and obviously some Muppets. And I asked you to tell me, what character in that fountain is the cameraman? I want to thank the hundreds of you who entered. Got this one correct again. Some of you very creative in your answers, but the correct answer obviously was Fozzie Bear. But next time you go to the courtyard, make sure you take a really close, detailed look at that fountain all the way around, because sometimes you'll find some additional details that you probably never noticed before. Anyway, last week you were playing for all of my digital products, which include my 102 Ways to Save Money for an at Walt Disney World book, all 7 of my virtual audio walking tours of the Magic Kingdom, a WDW Radio vinyl sticker for your car or your laptop, a pop socket for your phone, and a mystery prize, which may or may not have come back with me from our Adventures by Disney trip. It could be something from the studios, it could be something from Imagineering, Disneyland, the Cozy Cone. That's why it's a mystery prize. Anyway, I took all the correct entries, randomly selected one, and last week's winner is Ellie Mitchum. So Ellie, congratulations. You use the online form. I have your shipping address. I will get your prize package out to you right away. If you played last week, didn't win, that's okay, because here's your next chance to enter in this week's food-themed, of course, Walt Disney World Trivia Challenge. So in Epcot's Club Cool, not only can you sample refreshing and interesting Coca-Cola flavors from around the world, but I know that we've all tried to trick our unsuspecting first-time guests and friends to the joys that are Italy's Beverly. But have you tried them all? And maybe do you have a favorite? I do. Maybe one that you even tried to order for home. Anyway, if so, no matter what, tell me this. What is the name, see if you can do it from memory, what is the name, but you don't have to, of the Club Cool beverage that you can sample that hails from Japan? Where, by the way, speaking of Adventures by Disney, I can't wait to go next year. Anyway, it's okay. Tell me the Club Cool beverage that you can sample that hails from Japan. You have until Sunday, November 11th at 11:59 p.m. to go to WDWRadio.com, click on this week's podcast, use the form on that page. Again, you're going to play for the books, the 7 audio tours, the sticker, the pop socket, and this week, I will send you a WDW Radio shirt. So good luck and have fun. That's going to do it for this week's show. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend and share with me. I also want to say big thanks and congratulations to everybody who came out and ran, walked, wogged, jogged, cheered, photographed, ate during this past weekend's Wine and Dine Half Marathon, including all the members of the WDW Radio running team and everybody who helped join me cheer on the course with them. Whether you are a first-time runner, a 10-time perfect dopey marathoner, or you just want to dip your toe into the WDW Radio marathon events, go to WDWRun.com. Be part of the WDW Radio running team and community and support system. Again, we are there to help you plan and run and cheer and train and be part of a community. It's so wonderful to see so many runners from the team running together during the events and supporting one another, not just during the event, but in between as well. Go ahead and go to WDWRun.com. And don't forget that we run to benefit the Make-A-Wish Foundation of America. So this not only helps you and helps the team, but helps those that need it most as well. Speaking of family and community, I want you to be part of it because you already are, just by virtue of you listening. To be part of the conversation and community, go to WDWRadio.com/community. That will take you to our Box People group on Facebook. That's where I want the conversation and the community really to exist, not just talking about this week's episode or things we have on the blog or videos, but anything really that you want to chat about as well. And even further than that, thanks to all of you who are part of the WDW Radio Nation, including Dave Anderson, John Yaus, Michael Lynn, Peter Bush, Dawn Lee, Kevin Rodwell, Christy McLarty, and Jason Farrell. You guys not only do so much to help the show, but again, don't forget that a portion of everything that you contribute does go to our Dream Team project to benefit the Make-A-Wish Foundation of America. To find out more and to see how you can not only help the show, but get exclusive rewards every month, including monthly scavenger hunts, we have a private Facebook group, custom Magic Band covers, logo gear, t-shirts, monthly care packages from Walt Disney World, exclusive live video group calls, early access to special events, which, as you know, if you try to get into some of our recent events that sell out quickly, that is a big bonus as well. Go and visit WDWRadio.com/support. Remember that this show is not only for you, but to a certain degree, it's by you as well. So I want to hear from you. If you have a question or a comment you want me to answer on the air, you can email me, lou@WDWRadio.com, or call 407-900-9391. That's our voicemail line. You can leave a question, a comment, a hello from the parks. Don't forget to join me every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern for WDW Radio Live as I do a live video broadcast. More importantly, a conversation with you real time, either from my office or out and about from the parks. I'd also love to connect with you on social. I am at Lou Mongello on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Pinterest. Again, don't forget to join the WDW Radio Box People group and like our page at facebook.com/WDW Radio. And of course, while I think that connecting and engaging on social is wonderful, nothing beats a handshake and a hug. That's why I continue to do Meets of the Month every month in Walt Disney World. I'm still trying to figure out exactly when I can fit in November's, possibly over Destination D weekend. If you're going, come to the Box People group, let me know. December's will most likely be the weekend of the 8th, and January's will be over Marathon Weekend on Saturday, January 12th. Go to the events page at wdwradio.com/events to find out about upcoming meets of the month, group cruises, our Adventures by Disney to Japan, our cruise to New Orleans in February 2019, as well as other announcements as well. Also stay tuned as I'll be announcing some on-the-road events as I travel to speak. Oftentimes I'll do meetups as I'm going throughout the country or sometimes even internationally as well. And to that point, if I could maybe come speak to you, to your business, to your conference, to your school, to your event, visit LouMongello.com. You can find out how I can sort of integrate Disney, lessons learned from the Disney parks, customer service, new media, social media, and lots more customized to you and your event. Again, visit Lou Mongello to find out more. And speaking of events, stay tuned this week as I'll be announcing and releasing tickets for my Momentum Weekend Workshop and my February 2019 retreat weekend in Walt Disney World. So stay tuned. Save the dates, February 2019 and September 2019. And stay tuned this week for announcements on social, on Facebook, and in the newsletter. Thanks as always to Mousefan Travel, my official and recommended travel provider. I've been using them for my family's vacations for more than a decade, and that's why I trust them enough to recommend them to you. Of course, you can visit them at mousefantravel.com. Go to celebrationspress.com to subscribe and order back issues of Celebrations magazine. And finally, and most importantly, if you like the show, and I hope that you do, and if not, tell me why you don't, please help spread the word. Let others know about it. This is the best way for us collectively to grow our community by inviting your friends to join our friends here. So tweet out that you're listening to this or your favorite episode. Share it on Facebook, on your profile or your page or in your group. And if you can, take just 30 seconds to rate and review the show over on iTunes. That is so incredibly helpful. I want to thank some recent reviewers like Chris the Bionic Dad, best name ever, who says, WDW Radio is the best podcast available. I started listening back before it was officially the WDW Radio podcast, and it was good. But now it's amazing. It's always a positive, always family-oriented. It's the best Disney podcast out there. If you want helpful hints and information, if you want fantastic interviews with the Disney legends, if you want great reviews on food and behind-the-scenes magic, then sit back, relax, and enjoy. Practically Perfect says, simply the best. I am a longtime listener and fan of your show. You know you're a friend, not a fan. We've met several times through my work at MEI. I recommend your podcast to my clients, especially the food reviews. Those are my favorites. And Dawnzer Lee says, not only an expert, but infectious enthusiasm. I look forward to each week's podcast, whether I'm planning a trip or not. Lou's knowledge is amazing, but even more so is his friendliness and inherent goodness, which makes my heart glad. Oh, thanks. It's one of the most joyful hours or two of my week when I tune in, and it feels like I'm talking with friends. That's the idea, that I've known for years, but maybe haven't quite met yet. It's almost as good as a Mickey hug. I thought you were going to say it's like a Mickey bar, a Mickey churro, some sort of Mickey food related, but you're right. Mickey hugs are good too. And Beatles 1964 says there's a ton of great Disney tips and tricks with some fun. Lou shares a ton of knowledge and his love of Disney each and every week. Thanks to all of you for taking the time not just to listen, but to rate and review the show as well. Again, just search for WDW Radio in iTunes or go to wdwradio.com/iTunes. And it'll take you right there and show you exactly how to do it. Finally, and most importantly, thank you. I love and appreciate you so very much in this season of Thanksgiving. It is even so much more important and so much more pronounced for me to make sure that you know that I remember and recognize and I'm grateful for you every single day. And if there's something that I can do for you to help repay that favor, reach out to me and please let me know. Thanks again. I hope that this is your best and most delicious week ever. So until next time, see ya.
Hi, Lou. This is Emma Harmon from Tallahassee and Orlando, Florida. I am calling in because I finally got to listen to your Moving to Disney podcast, and they were great. I loved them. And they inspired me to tell a little bit of my Moving to Disney story. My parents both decided that Disney was where we belonged. Orlando, Florida was where we belonged when I was 10 years old. and we moved from right outside of Chicago to Orlando, to Hunter's Creek. And my parents have lived there ever since. I go to Florida State University in Tallahassee now, but my parents decided that was the best move for us, and I'm so, so, so grateful that they did. They're both now cast members, and it's just been an incredible experience for me. It was great to hear your kids talk about it because I was their age when my parents, or about their age that they are now, when my parents decided to move, and it's so fun to hear their perspective. Growing up right by Disney is just really, 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 really beneficial because you're able to take all of the stories and all of the characters and all of the morals of Disney and of the happiness that Disney can provide and bring it to your life. And I remember going to Disney on the weekends with my friends, as Marion was talking about, and it was a great way to grow up. And so if anybody is nervous of whether or not it's a good move for them, I would highly suggest doing it as long as you feel like it's the right move for you, because it's the best place on earth, and why not be close to it? Keep up the good work. I love listening to your podcast. Also, just listen to your listener email ones. Those are always my favorite. With Becky, I love her. She's great. So keep up the good work. Thanks for all you do, Lou. You make our days brighter. Have a good day.
Hi, Lou. My name's Heather Ewer. I am a band teacher from Denver, Colorado, and I've been listening to your podcast for the last 3 years, and I super love it because my whole family, we're just like definitely Disney people, and we've been plenty of times, even though we're from Denver. We've actually been an absurd amount of times, but we can talk about that later. We're actually coming as a full family in this Christmas, so I'm super excited. I hope to meet you at a meet of the month, either early January or late December. But the reason why I'm calling is because I just listened to your Disney Institute episode, and it took me back because back in 2000, my twin brother and I were 10 years old, and we got to participate in 2 classes one day. We did a whole day of classes. So we did a class called The Swamp Stomp, and that class actually, our bus car thing broke down, and so we got to spend some extra time in the swamp before someone came and saved us. And then we got to do Broadway Bound, which was my favorite, and that was back when they had the Hunchback of Notre Dame show going on at Hollywood Studios. So that was super epic, super awesome, and just wonderful music, and we had a blast. So I thought you'd appreciate 2 kids who back in 2000 had a great time with the Disney Institute, and thank you so much for doing the Wayback Machine because I really enjoyed learning about the Institute things I had no clue. I hope you have a magical day, and thanks for your time. Bye, Lou. Thanks, friend.
Hey, Lou. It's Christine Morrison from Flowertown, PA. I'm listening to episode 204. That's where I'm at, going backwards. And it's your review with Jeff Whalen and Scott Otis. Sorry, Jeff. Of Blue Zoo. And your server, Joe. And I am starving. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it. I didn't eat lunch, so I made the stupid mistake of listening to one of your food reviews, which now my mouth is watering. I need to go to Blue Zoo. I hope it's still there. I hope Joe still works there because I love his Northeast accent. I'm not sure where he hails from. I don't know if it's New York or Boston, but that accent, I love it. I love the way you guys are describing the food, and I'm going to go back and listen to the rest now. It's a Friday afternoon, and I left work early today, and here I am listening to your review of Blue Zoo. So I'm going to put that on my list of places to go when I go back to Disney. Have a great weekend, everyone. Make somebody smile. Take care, and I'll see you in the box. Bye.
Hey, Lou, it's Christine Morrison from Flowertown, PA, and I think I just need to have a little correction on my last phone call. I think I called Mr. Whalen Jeff when his name is Glenn, so I'm sorry about that. I think that's what I said. Anyway, I'm finishing listening to your Blue Zoo review, and boy, it's so amazing. I'm to the part where you're almost getting your entrees, but so far it's been pretty awesome. But I'm heading out to work for the day, and I'll listen to you on the way. Have a great one, everybody. Make somebody smile. Bye-bye.
Hello, Lou Mongello. It's Darlene Yankee from West Seneca, New York, and I'm calling in to say that there are 345 days until the Japan trip. that Disney adventure will be so amazing. I know that you guys have done these things before with those groups, and I know how much fun you've had in the past.
Hi, Lou. This is Peggy Teal from Rochester, New York. I'm calling in to let you know what I love about Main Street USA. I love everything about Main Street, but what I love the most is just how happy I am when I'm there. I love that I feel as if I'm visiting a quaint town where life was simpler and more peaceful. I love the sounds of the horseshoes when they walk down the street. I love the smiles that I see when I walk in on the guests and the cast members. I also love the memories that I have of meeting the mayor a few years back and when Jasmine and Aladdin walked along with my family down Main Street at park opening one year and telling my girls to make sure they stopped over to see them at Adventureland. This was a great top 10. Thanks, Lou.